This is the GPL podcast from GopherPuckLive.com. Wait a second. Hair game on GPL is the least thing. You just got stylist. Ote mote.
Oh boy. Jupe making mistakes. I love it. And so I had to train for this marathon.
Make sure you stay awake for the game tomorrow.
Really surprised what I saw out of Michigan State because there's so much hype about them going into that series that, oh, they're back. Like, they're playing really well. And then I see them play Minnesota. I'm just like, where's the skill?
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 236. Well, Viggs, it's championship time.
We made it.
We did.
I feel like at the start of this season, the Gophers wish they could just fast forward to this weekend and get here healthy, get here productive, get here in good spirits. And here we are, and it sounds like the Gophers will get Jackson Lacombe back for this big series or the big game with Michigan here to cap the year and then get in the NCAA tournament.
Well, since we're playing Michigan again, Viggs, we added a Michigan person this year on the podcast, so we thought we'd bring it back. Connor Earegood from the Michigan Daily. There he is right there. Connor, thanks for coming back, man.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back. It's an exciting time of year, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
As a writer, as a fan, it's our time of year. It's our time of year. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I hear you're coming this weekend to Mariucci.
Yes. Yep. Our whole daily crew's gonna be there. Thank you to Scott, the Minnesota SID. Was emailing back and forth this week. We made something work. So thank you if you're listening.
Well, I think he watches at times. Does he, Viggs? I think he might tune in.
Sometimes. There's always ears on the GPL podcast from the Gopher.
Yeah, to make sure we don't say something. Make sure we don't say something stupid. Wait, make sure I don't say something stupid. You never say anything stupid, Viggs.
That's right. Always smart, 100% of the time. The Gophers are doing good things this year with what they have going on at Mariucci Arena. I think the fans have been responsive all year to what they're trying to accomplish. The students have been there all year, and you could see it in the crowd last weekend. I think looking back at semifinals and quarterfinals for the Big Ten tournament, Minnesota's always had a tough time drawing crowds to those early games, and they got over 9,000 to buy tickets for Michigan State. Mm-hmm. And I think like 8,200 showed up, which is incredible with the snow, with the state hockey tournament going on. And when the players came out for warm-ups and saw the student section full, and when I saw them full with their phones out for the starting lineups, I was like, all right, here we go. It's playoff time.
I was unable to make it last week. I was at the end of some COVID, so I thought it was best not to come to the arena last weekend. On the opposite end, at Yost last weekend, I know Viggs, you kind of liked Ohio State in that game, but Connor, Michigan came out strong, and they never really let Ohio State in that game, really.
No, not at all. I mean, 23 seconds in, Gavin Brindley scores, first shot of the game, and after that, with the crowd in it, sellout crowd, like once you felt the energy shift, Ohio State wasn't getting that back. I think they drew within 2. I think it was 4-2 at one point, and then Michigan just poured it right back on. So I would say Michigan's best win of the season.
Dobish didn't help themselves. I thought the first couple goals, I thought it could have been a much better game. If Dobish could have just been there for those first couple goals, it might have been more interesting, don't you think, Connor? I almost was a little unlike him a bit.
Yeah, I almost think that, I mean, he's got all the talent in the world. He's one of the best goaltenders in the conference. I think that first one might have rattled him a little bit. Like, the fans are breathing down your neck. You let in that first goal, huge mistake, and then you almost, like, you get yourself out of it. Like, you let yesterday beat you today kind of thing. I almost wonder if that's what happened. We didn't get to do any pressers with OSU afterward. We tried, but since they were heading out of there, we didn't get a chance to chat.
And Viggs, that's kind of the key when you go to Yost. If you can keep Michigan quiet the first 10 minutes, you're going to do pretty good. And I think, you liked Ohio State in that game, but really, I think Dobish kind of let them down to start that game.
Well, we kind of saw that with Dobish when he came to Mariucci the last time Ohio State visited the Gophers, and his body language just wasn't into it. Like, he seemed goofing around. He didn't seem engaged. He didn't seem mentally resilient. And you saw those first couple of goals for the Wolverines go in, and you saw his head down, and you saw him get less aggressive and play deeper in his crease. And it just was not going to work for Ohio State to have a goaltender playing like that. It was almost like Michigan fed off of that timid play from Ohio State. And then the goal that got disallowed by the Buckeyes, that could have maybe got them back in it, when that gets disallowed and Michigan goes right down and scores again, that puts a pretty steep hill for the Buckeyes to climb.
Apparently there was another offsides call that I never saw. Is that the one that got overruled? Was it the offsides call, or was it?
Yeah. Yep. The offsides. I think it was Joe Dunlap was offsides, and it was close.
The thing is,
if I was the official, I might have let that one go just for game flow. But
I was sending messages to Cap and Agri at the BT, and I'm like, your graphic is covering up where his foot would be on the line. We can't see it. So we're like, I'm sure he was offside, but we couldn't see it.
Yeah, well, that and then when Michigan has that, I think it was goaltender interference call or whatever it was on Michigan's third goal. Michigan hasn't won challenges hardly at all this year. So winning 2 back-to-back like that, I think that was more confidence for them than the 3 goals. Like that you couldn't beat them at that point.
And then here at 3M Arena at Mariucci this past weekend, Viggs, they got themselves in trouble a little bit there at first, and Michigan State kind of came out, got a power play, and got up 1-0.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily liked the penalty call on Logan Cooley, either for the way he delivered the blow and the way Jager Joshua maybe drew the call a little bit from the officials. It was right in front of the Gopher bench. It was a little high for a hit, but it really wasn't that dangerous. I think the officials just kind of saw what they thought they saw and called it. If that play would have happened during the AA state hockey tournament here, it obviously would have been a no penalty call. I don't know if anyone watching our show watched the hockey tournament, but there were hardly any penalties called during the boys state hockey tournament this year. That's the way they like it. We don't see it that way in college hockey, obviously.
Oh boy, it was Connor. It was bad. We get used to a way a game is called, Connor. We complain a lot. Oh, that's a terrible call, but it is a much cleaner game, the college game. And then when a fan like me goes and watches the high school tournament, I see all this stick work, and I see in one of the semifinals was an Edina guy. He came up on a check. He pretty much hit the guy in the head. Would have been an instant 5 in college, which we see all the time. But in that game, it wasn't even a penalty, Viggs.
Yep, that's the way they want the boys high school tournament called, and I think the teams going into it know that. So it was a pretty fun weekend of hockey in Minnesota. But back to the Gophers, I think on the penalty kill, that first unit got caught out there a little bit long. They weren't able to get any clears, so they give up a goal. A couple of mistakes that Bob referenced, and then Minnesota gets right back on the power play. Nice play by Jackson Nelson around the net. Probably the easiest goal he'll ever have in college hockey. Everybody's worried about Matthew Nyes on one wing, and I think it was Snuggerud or Cooley on the other side that was kind of looking off the pass, and Nelson was all alone. And then Middlestat, hardworking line against Michigan State, gets rewarded for a goal on a low to high play where he gets a tip, and away we go, Gophers.
Minnesota just got Michigan State's number now, Viggs. 14 straight wins. They outscored them 30-7 this year. They just have their number, Viggs.
Well, and I think Michigan State got the start that they wanted.
They did.
We
talked about that. We talked about if they come out early and get a goal, but they needed to get more. They just couldn't do it.
Right. They needed to hold on after that goal and keep the momentum going in the period. And then maybe you never know what happens. It did kind of look like Logan Cooley was getting frustrated throughout the game. We saw a couple of times where it was almost like Cooley, Nyes, and Stuggerud came on the ice and they said, we're not scoring. Let's get some energy by hitting people. And you could feel that sometimes with that line. Every once in a while, all three of them will have consecutive hits, just trying to get something going if they get frustrated.
Connor, we've been saying all along that, a good Big Ten is a healthy Big Ten. Michigan State being bad for so long has been bad for the Big Ten. Wisconsin being way down is bad for the Big Ten. We really like what Nightingale has done there. He's at least started pushing it forward for Michigan State.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And with his national team development program connections, they're only going up from here. I think they have 2 or 3 commits on the current U18 team, and I think they have even more on the U17s because that's what I guess that's the program Nightingale was going to coach if he didn't go to MSU. But no, just really trusts his players and really gives them a lot of room to develop and grow. Like it's really good for Michigan hockey in terms of the state.
Connor, you've been writing about Mel again.
Yeah.
Because Mel's been hanging around the arena. And it was, what was it, against Wisconsin, I think, a couple weeks ago. He went on the broadcast. I actually have the audio from it. I'm going to play it now so we can hear exactly what happened. And then we'll kind of get into your article this week. So let's take a listen here.
Hey, and you got to say hello to former Michigan hockey coach Mel Pearson stopping by the broadcast booth. Mel, how you been? Good to see you. You got a good crowd on hand. What are you thinking about the Michigan Wolverines here and this Wisconsin Badgers?
Great crowd. These people have always supported Michigan hockey. I mean, they've got the best fans in college hockey, and obviously, 3-1 here. So I think they get the next goal. This probably series is over. But they look good. They get, a little loose to start with at the beginning of the game, but they've got so many guys who can score. They get opportunities, they're going to finish. So anyway, Eric Portillo, he's played well. He's made some critical saves at key times. He doesn't get enough credit, because of all the scoring they have.
What do you think about that trade, the Buffalo Sabres sending him to L.A.?
Yeah, it's good. Buffalo's got a crowded net. L.A., obviously, they don't have the depth. And, a guy I coach at Michigan Tech, Phoenix Copley, is their goalie now. So I think it's a good opportunity for Eric to go in, and try and find a way to get the NHL. So because of the depth there. But anyway, happy for him.
Very good. Thank you, Mel, for stopping by, and appreciate you joining us here on the broadcast.
Okay, well, there was Mel at the game. Apparently, you've been seeing him at games quite a bit this year. Is he there a lot?
Pretty much all season. So,
okay.
Since the exhibition against Windsor.
I can understand a coach coming back if they didn't leave on greatest terms, maybe as a scout. I mean, I know we saw John Hill the very first game, after he was let go. We saw him right at Mariucci because he was doing some scouting. He was essentially fired, Connor. What's he doing at the games in such a public role, I should say?
Yes. Yeah. So, every time you see him, he's still wearing his, it's not necessarily coaching attire, right? I mean, everyone kind of wears the same sort of like pullover and whatnot, but it's the same kind of stuff he was wearing behind the bench, and goes and talks with scouts, goes and talks with folks that are kind of, I'll call it working the game, ushers everyone. Just makes his presence known to really everyone. So it's called like the Champions Box. That's how they brand the luxury seating. It's the 4th level right underneath the press box. If you guys have ever been to the Yost press box, one level below it, and right next to the little like TV where they have the tripods and everything set up for the broadcast. Yep. His booth is right next to that. So, and
Vigs, you kind of have a little grin on your face. What are your thoughts?
Well, I just think it's interesting, and it kind of speaks to how Michigan handled Mel's case the whole way through. It was not really public how they parted ways in terms of the buyout or fired for cause or whatnot. And I think just the way the investigation was run by an independent party, so nothing's subject to FOIA, and the way they kept it under wraps is just interesting. And I think Michigan trying to ignore this situation speaks to the awkwardness of how they went into it. And I get Mel still probably feels like he has a place in the hockey world, and is looking for his next thing. And I think Michigan has kind of enabled that with the way they've handled this. And so I think legally Michigan's in a tough spot. I'm not sure if they want to push on this and create a bigger situation than they already have on their hands. But it's got to be awkward for the student broadcast to invite them on and start having a discussion with the disgraced former coach, because I think the commentators didn't feel that way. They didn't feel like they did anything wrong right away.
I was watching that broadcast, and I guess I was kind of zoning out because it was, that there was like a stoppage, or there was something going on. I can't quite remember when it was.
You're like, I know that voice. I know that voice. What is that?
Yeah.
It wasn't until I saw on Twitter, and then I went back and then I grabbed the audio from him. Like, what in the world? It is kind of like, it's like they're allowing it to happen. You would think Mel would feel weird too. I don't know. The whole thing is just so weird, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan could solve this, right, if they would just fully commit to finishing the investigation. So in Wilmer Hale's original report, toward the conclusions chapter, or I guess section, not really a chapter, although it reads like one, reads like a book. They call for, I believe it's SPG 601-90, so that's protection from retaliation, recently passed standard practice guide for the university. They call for a new investigation to be opened. So the reason why they couldn't say that anyone was retaliated against and couldn't say Mel did anything wrong, right, in the ECRT reports, that's the Equity, Civil Rights, and Title IX office, is this investigation was done under their Title IX and sexual misconduct policy. So they couldn't include any like lying on COVID forms, any retaliation against a student athlete, right? None of that fell under that jurisdiction. The only thing that could fall under that was the Dr. Anderson complaints of his misconduct and who knew about that, as well as misconduct and mistreatment of women in the program, and gender-based discrimination. So those were the only things they could really rule on. And in the report, they pretty much point to the fact that Steve Shields was fired because he was a whistleblower and was telling people from compliance and people from the ECRT office that Strauss-Mann was getting retaliated against. So they said, open up a new investigation under this, and we can kind of do more, is how they hinted at it. And Michigan has not acted on that in 10 months since it's been on Ward Manuel's desk. So it's like you have this big wound, right? And you're not even going to put a Band-Aid on it. You're not even going to try.
I do think that the Strauss-Mann situation is complicated, and the Steve Shields situation is complicated because I don't know if those are quite whistleblower partings, in my opinion. That stuff happens in college hockey a lot, where if there's a conflict between a head coach and a staff member, or a conflict between a head coach and a player, they part ways for many different reasons. We've seen that in Minnesota. We've seen a couple goalies come and go over the last couple of years, and it's because people aren't on the same page and they part ways. And I think especially at a place like Michigan, where the goalie position is so crucial to your success, and they've got Eric Portillo coming in, Strauss-Mann isn't going to be treated with kid gloves. Mel Pearson's going to do what's best for the program. There's money involved. There's jobs involved. There's pro development involved. It's bigger than just what's going on with COVID. And I don't think you could really pin it just to that if you were trying to make a case. And I think that's probably why Michigan is trying to just move on, leave the dirty laundry in the hallway, and get their flight forward.
Yeah. But how can you kind of move forward if you let him hang around like that is the thing. Like, it's almost like they're ignoring it happen more than solving it,
Maybe it's just something somebody needs to just go to him and say, can you please not do this? I mean, maybe once, a couple times a year, but if you're here all the time, it's just not a good look for us. I mean, we want this to go away, and you're not helping us let it go away.
You could see if Red Berenson had a heart-to-heart with Mel and said, you're hurting the program by continuing to show up, Mel might change his mind. But if he's seen stuff from the media or seen stuff on Twitter, he's very active on Twitter. I think that's just going to galvanize him to feel like he's done nothing wrong. I think the best thing for Mel is maybe to go coach junior hockey or something somewhere, or be a consultant, or do something else, because I don't think he's getting the Michigan job back.
No, not in the slightest.
Well, I just had to bring it up because I saw you had that article this week, Connor, and I think it's pretty relevant because, gosh, it's just so awkward. I don't know. Oh, what do you do? All right, let's get towards the game this weekend. Michigan coming back into town just like they did last year. Vigs, two very good teams. What's your initial thoughts?
I think this is the matchup that everybody wanted this weekend. These are clearly the most talented teams in the Big Ten. You look at all the award voting. It's a tough year for anybody other than Michigan and Minnesota in those ballots for awards, and that's because of the talent on the ice that these two programs have. And I've been really impressed with Gavin Brindley this year. He's kind of almost a straw that stirs the drink for the Wolverines. He got that first goal for them against Ohio State, and I think he's a tone setter. I think once he moved on that line in the second half of the year, it really helped Michigan find a little bit more consistency. And I think it's a great matchup for Minnesota because we're going to see a lot of offense. And I think Minnesota had a little dip to their game in the second half, but they fought their way through it. It didn't really hurt them with wins and losses, and they're playing well right now after that first 10 minutes against Michigan State.
What do you think, Connor?
No, I would agree with, yeah, I would agree with that on Gavin Brindley. I think the biggest thing he does is he opens up instead of putting like Dylan Duke and Mackie Samoskevich with Adam Fantilli, it opens up a second line to produce with them with TJ Hughes. Adam Fantilli is going to score with anyone. He could score with me out there. Like, he's that good of a player. So when you put a guy like Gavin Brindley who just has wheels for days, get him the puck and he's gonna score. It just creates good things. And Rutger McGroarty's no slouch either. He just hasn't really had the space to really drive plays and create a whole lot with that duo. But that being said, it just means you have two consistent lines that are kind of rolling almost every night, right? And Michigan actually went with that Brindley Fantilli pairing. I think McGroarty was on their wing for that game against Minnesota last. What was it, January? Right, early.
Yep.
January. Yeah. So that was the first time they rolled that combo out. So I think Brandon Nerado is going to keep that for this weekend series, but I wouldn't know for sure. Obviously, I'm not on that coaching staff, so feel like we can
Connor
on that though.
Yeah, you talk about consistency, and that's kind of one of the things we've talked about Michigan this year. Obviously when they're on, they're on. They can play with anybody. But their Achilles heel has been that consistency and maybe not playing the smart game that they know they can play.
Yeah, and I think part of it too, being a younger team that might not have the greatest habits established yet in terms of just rebounding, not really letting a loss affect you too bad. They went from being on a 7-game win streak that started actually against the Gophers on away ice, that overtime win. They went on a 7-game win streak and then finished out the year with 4 straight losses, 3 of which I believe came in overtime or the shootout. So not exactly the greatest end of the season. And then they almost lost to Wisconsin the way they played them. Not a good series at all if you're Michigan. Ugly hockey. Even if they won it over.
It happened to Minnesota too.
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
I mean, to be fair, like if you look at Wisconsin's non-conference record and how they played, good team, not good for the Big Ten in terms of skill level, right? I mean, they match up pretty well against some other opponents, but there's a reason they're the last team in the Big Ten, and Michigan should not have been that close against them. But they survived that, right? And credit to them for doing that and not dropping one of those games. It would have been real easy to do with their backs against the wall, going to that overtime game. Stephen Holtz playing hero. After all he's gone through was real cool to see. And then after that, they played probably their best game of the season against Ohio State. I mean, whatever they're doing right now is working. I think the key, I feel almost like if they lose this game, it's going to be real hard for them to rebound in the regional. So I feel like this game's going to be more for them to to prime for the NCAA postseason. Because, like I said, once they lose, it kind of gets to them a little bit. I don't know if it was just how they process the loss or if they let it hang with them a little bit too much. But they got to learn to right the ship a little bit quicker, and we haven't really seen that this season from them.
Well, one interesting thing about this weekend, Viggs, is that a lot of hockey is going to be played Friday night, and a lot of little math formulas could be figured out Friday night too. That both Minnesota and Michigan are at 1-4, and they're going nowhere, no matter what happens. So there's a lot that's still going to happen before they even put the puck on the ice on Saturday.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting things that can happen in the pairwise, especially if North Dakota wins a game in the NCHC. That gives Minnesota maybe a little bit more incentive to win their game, because if the Fighting Hawks win, the Gophers have to win to get that 1 overall seed, because there's a lot of scenarios that open up for Quinnipiac to leapfrog them. So that's an interesting thing to watch. But I do think that Michigan this year has surprised me with the number of mistakes they make with the puck in critical situations, whether it's the last player back coming up, carrying the puck on the breakout, and all 4 of his teammates are in front of him. I've seen a lot of bad plays by Michigan players in that situation. We've seen bad penalties by Michigan, offensive zone, neutral zone, things that just kill them, 5-minute majors. And I don't think they've totally cleaned that up this year. And I think that's probably the difference between Minnesota and Michigan, is Minnesota doesn't make those mistakes. I was having a little conversation with Wally Shaver after the game on Saturday, and I kind of flippantly said, man, Minnesota didn't really make many turnovers tonight. And he's like, turnovers? There are a bunch of them. I was like, what I mean is they didn't make bad turnovers. They're not making turnovers at their blue lines. They're not making turnovers on the rush. They're making good decisions with the puck in the key areas of the ice to play winning hockey and play percentage hockey. I don't see the same thing being done by Michigan in the games I watch.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like Michigan's biggest problem, I think, with like, not to call it youth, right, with all the younger players, but I think their biggest problem throughout the season when they were dropping every other game was just finding, like you said, the consistency, but also the consistency of like being in the lineup, who they're going to play with every night. I mean, it was almost like lines were in a blender. One of my colleagues, Charlie Papalardo, wrote a decent piece yesterday about how they're kind of used to mix and match the lines, and now it's kind of settled, and they've been even getting some production from the third line. Which, like, if you look at Michigan last season, that's what kind of carried them, right? And made them one of the best teams in college hockey, was they just had so much depth. Like, you're not going to replace, 5 first-round NHL draft picks, 6 NHL draft picks. Like, you're not going to replace those guys leaving. But if you can find that consistency early, get guys rolling, that's how you build a successful program and kind of turn the corner faster. So they're starting to do that. They just got to maintain it.
I'm looking at penalty minutes per game, and Minnesota's third, with 7.57 minutes per game, Viggs. The last time I looked, I haven't seen, Michigan was like about 10 minutes more. I don't know if it's still there, but.
And it's all the minor penalties that they're taking, too. If you look at the special team stats, their penalty kill attempts is significantly higher than the rest of the conference. I don't have them handy on me, but I know last time I looked about a couple weeks ago, that was a big difference maker there. And you just don't see Minnesota having that too often. Like, I think Minnesota, you look at the 2 majors they took on the one shift the other weekend, that was not maybe the best play in the world, but it also kind of let Ohio State know that the Gophers weren't going to be messed around that night. They didn't have a lot to play for, and they were going to answer the bell, and it could have been a really interesting game if Ohio State kept poking the bear.
I don't think I'd ever actually seen that before, Viggs.
I've never seen 2 majors called
5
on
majors,
like
at once. I mean, that was very odd, and like we saw, Nyes came out after the game and he talked about it. He says, I apologize to my fellow teammates, things like that. So it's good to see somebody learn when that happens. I think I'm just more excited about, because I thought last year was a great game. Minnesota came out right away. Michigan quieted the crowd, which is exactly what they needed to do. Minnesota started creeping back. They kind of ran out of time and whatnot. Vigs. Not as many students this time. They didn't go 5 sections. They're going the same 3, but I have a feeling a lot of those students are going to bleed over into other areas. But really, we're kind of anticipating a similar atmosphere to last year.
I would think so. It sold out real quick this week. It sold out, I think, yesterday.
Well, it was actually sold out Sunday night.
Essentially, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is a crowd. When Minnesota sells the tickets late in the process like this, it means you're going to have that high redemption rate. That scan count for the Michigan game last year is probably the highest I've ever seen since doing the ticket scan data.
Yep.
And I'm expecting the same kind of crowd this weekend. I am really bummed. I am flying out to DC for my spring break trip this year with my family. I got the White House trio of visits because I'm going to the White House, the West Wing, and bowling. Can't pass that up.
When are you leaving?
I'm leaving Friday night, so I'll be able to watch the game on TV Saturday. Hopefully, there's some White House tours that day, so I'll be sad to miss it. But I'm expecting just an absolute electric atmosphere. Students in the seat for warm-ups. This is the kind of game you dream of if you're a Gopher hockey fan, and if you're a Michigan fan that somehow got a ticket to this one, enjoy it. Just keep your beers in hand. Do not put them on the ice, regardless of what happens.
I just got a text. Looks like general fan tickets were sold out on Sunday. They were still selling student tickets as of yesterday, but they kind of oversell the students, don't they, Viggs?
A little bit. They haven't been doing that this year, though, because the students have been showing up that have the tickets already. So they don't want to create a fire marshal hazard issue for these games. Because I think if they oversold the game, the students would show up still.
There you go.
100%.
Like I said, I'm just looking forward to a fun atmosphere. Our guy Randy Johnson from the Star Tribune did that article a couple weeks ago, which showed my photo from the beginning of the Michigan and Gopher game back in 2019 when it was at the puck drop. There was probably a couple hundred people in there, Connor. And it was bad. And then, people are always like, oh, Big Ten sucks, blah, blah, blah. And bring back the WCHA, that whole stuff that somebody as young as you is like, I don't know what you're talking about. But
a little bit.
We don't have that old barn like you guys do anymore. But I think it should be pretty loud in there, which I think gets the opponent just as jacked up for these games.
Oh, yeah. No, and I think that's the biggest issue looking at like NCAA tournament games that aren't on campus sites where it's, what's the arena? It's like PPG Paints. No, that's in Pittsburgh. What's the name of the one in Allentown? I don't even remember. I want to delete it from my memory. It was empty. I mean, there were like 200 fans in the stands. And I think the Michigan like pep band that came along, I think was the biggest like concentration of fans. It was the biggest section that like had people that weren't just like one-offs. I mean, seats on the glass could have been like $5. Someone at least gets in. But I feel like you have that energy, and it just allows both teams to play so well.
Yes.
Because it brings some energy, right? It's not like it's a practice. I don't know. It's a cool environment too, just to take in a game when you're covering it. You can kind of feel how the game's going based on the crowd, and people get into it. It just makes it a way better experience for everybody.
And the thing is, as we know, being out west, even though we're the Midwest, there's not many arenas out in this area. And there's not many people willing to put up the money to do it. I mean, you've got North Dakota's been doing it every year, Vigs. Or they try to. I mean, I think they're going back out to Loveland again next year or something like that. But North Dakota's going to do it every year because they're usually in it every year. They still have a chance to get in this year, but and the tickets at Shields Arena at Fargo, they're pretty much gone, so that won't be an issue. We've beaten this like a dead horse, haven't we?
Yeah, there just aren't real good junior or minor hockey rinks in Minnesota, Duluth, St. Cloud, Minnesota State. Like those areas don't have those kind of rinks. And I think Excel's made it clear they don't want to sacrifice their building for a regional that's not going to sell well. I think the ticket prices when they play in the NHL buildings are too high for the fans to make it worth it for anyone. So they got to find these rinks that are good fits. And out west, there just are not rinks like that. And it just kills me that we can't do some sort of campus site situation or high seed gets to host the first round. There's just so many other options out there to create a better student athlete experience, a better fan experience, and make the tournament lively. You have these teams out there who vote for this current situation because if they're the underdog and they get to play in an empty rink, maybe they have a better chance.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's what's best for college hockey.
Well,
what do you think? What do you think, Connor? You're
100%.
probably fairly new to. You're probably fairly new to this.
Yeah, no, I never really watched college hockey when it was regional sites. If that ages me a little,
I'm
what's
old,
the
so it's all
inverse of
good.
that youngs me. I don't think that's a verb. Anyway, no, it's odd to me why you would want student athletes that work so hard, right, to play in front of empty crowds. And like when college hockey is growing at the rate it is supposedly, I feel like you want to cash in on that. You want these campus sites to be lively and people to tailgate, and especially when it gets warmer out, like people to really get invested in it. I mean, Michigan against Ohio State, being a host site because of the conference tournament last weekend, it was packed. I mean, I show up about an hour and a half, 45 minutes early just because I like to set my laptop up, my notes, real particular about that. And people, I'd say probably half the arena beat me there. I was speechless. It was insane. Just people outside the doors waiting, cracking jokes, having a good time. It's like that's college hockey to me. Standing outside of the arena where the Lehigh Valley Phantoms play is not college hockey. Where there's like the press box was more full than the seats. Like there's just something wrong about that.
But Viggs, it doesn't prevent a school like Mankato or Augustana to maybe do the Sioux Falls regional if they wanted to. But honestly, it is easier for the bigger schools to take that financial burden.
It's a financial risk. You're having to meet the NCAA guarantee for your regional. You're having to staff it with your people. You're having to get volunteers. You're going to have to do advertising in the budget. And after all the expenses get covered, there might not be much left if you don't have a good bracket of teams that draw fans. And it's a big risk. And I think the other bad thing about the regionals is you can reward either the team that doesn't take the risk to host with a local close game, like Quinnipiac this year might get to go play in a regional pretty close to home, and they didn't even have to foot the bill for it. Or you have North Dakota, who could be a 15 seed, basically getting a home game against the 2 overall seed. Or you're going to have, somebody else who has to play them that's going to get, an unkindly matchup in the first round, which is just not ideal. And I think it's just broke out west for the regionals. And I was listening to the USCHO podcast this week, and they had Derek Schooley, who's a longtime coach at Robert Morris, and he was getting some kind of pushback. He's like, no one trusts this committee to do the right thing. And he's just like, well, when we seed the teams, it's pretty easy. We just go bracket integrity. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about an unfair situation. It's pretty obvious when they do the seedings and pairings that you could do kind of whatever, and the 16 teams who get in are the 16 teams who get in. But where they go and the atmosphere they get and the home ice advantages they get, like Providence has gotten a home ice advantage as a 4 seed more than anybody. I'm sure if BU has to go play North Dakota and they're a 1 seed and they're playing North Dakota as a 4, that happened to them a couple years ago already. And they lost in overtime in that one game where they had the offside call that got reviewed forever. Those situations are going to keep happening until they come up with a better solution.
Unfortunately, the big schools there's not enough of them, Viggs, that have the voting power to make a change. Is that kind of where we're at?
Well, I think what's going to happen is if the big schools want real change, they'll go through the NCAA instead of working through the D1 men's ice hockey committee, because that committee is dominated by small Eastern schools that don't really have much of an interest in doing what's best. And I think the big schools in the Big Ten, could go to the NCAA and handle it that way. We almost saw that happen when Don Lucia and the Big Ten were spearheading that effort to limit eligibility for overage players.
Yeah.
If you play juniors until you're 21 or 22, you're going to lose a year eligibility. You only can play 3 years of college hockey. That was something that the big schools were just going to push through. Maybe we see something like that happen in college hockey if there's no changes. I know that Tom McGinnis for the U was the chair of the D1 men's ice hockey committee for a long time. He never got anywhere with this issue. There's just so many hardliners out east who don't understand Western hockey, amazingly. They have all these bus rides to game of like 30, 40 minutes to get to a game. It's like playing high school hockey around here. Western teams have a different reality.
Well, we can keep hoping. Just, Connor, honestly, more empty arenas is the key.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. No, yeah. Send the message to him. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the only way they're going to fix it if they have a bunch of empty arenas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
We'll
we'll
have to
do our
see.
best by not buying a ticket this year.
All right, Connor.
Or the committee starts taking it to the Eastern teams and puts them in bad situations. It says, you know what, Quinnipiac, you may be the number 1 or 2 overall seed, but we're not putting you in Bridgeport. We're sending you to Fargo to play North Dakota.
Yeah.
I don't think that would ever happen, but why not? Providence, you're the host of this, but you're the 4 seed. You don't get to play there. You have to go somewhere else. There would be some interesting things that could happen.
That would take guts, Viggs, for them to do stuff like that.
I thought hockey players have guts. I thought we were tough guys.
Oh,
but it's not the hockey players making the decisions.
That's right.
All
Moving
right,
on.
Connor, what you got this weekend? Michigan's coming to town. Do they bring their consistency?
That's
Will
the $1 million
Will
question.
it even matter? We don't know, because Friday night could change everybody. It's like, nothing's going to change. Let's just go out and have fun, and maybe they play even looser, guys.
Yeah.
What do you
No,
think, Connor?
I think it's a good tune-up for both teams, especially when both look like they could be making pretty deep runs here, potentially playing in college hockey heartland of Tampa. When we're talking about empty arenas, that one will be packed. At least it's the Frozen Four.
It will be.
But no, I had to throw that in there. But my gut's telling me Minnesota for some reason. I just think with the way they've been clicking all year, and if Jackson Lacomb's going to be back, they're healthy, I feel like Minnesota's got a good chance. That being said, the key for Michigan, I think, is if they can get their top 2 lines rolling, if they can get that third line cooking with Frank Nazar, Eric Ciccolini, and Jackson Hallam, who many people in Minnesota probably know, have a feature coming out on him tomorrow. So keep a lookout. Actually, it'll be Friday. But anyway, I think if they can get that third line rolling, Michigan has a pretty good shot. It's just a matter of, you're not going to beat Minnesota with 2 lines, right? You're going to have consistent lines rolling, people producing. And like you mentioned, the consistency, like, just stay consistent. Don't make mistakes. Don't turn it over when you're the last guy or when you're trying to keep the puck in at the blue line in the power play, which Michigan consistently has done all season. They just got to play simple and they'll be all right. I know I sound like coach speak there, but just playing simple is their friend.
Michigan's got to stay out of the box, Viggs. That if they play smart, that's one of the big keys for them.
Well, you have to find that line between playing intense and physical and playing smart. We've seen so many players for Minnesota over the years never really learn that line about how to be engaged physically without taking penalties. I'm not going to name names on this podcast because we're at a fun part of the year, but that has happened in the past, and it frustrates fans. I think the Gophers have kind of figured out some of the right balance about when to do that, when not to do that. And so that's a sign of a mature team. Minnesota's got great leadership. And even when they have made mistakes, they don't wallow in it. They figure out, they battle through it. That first penalty kill unit has been really good for Minnesota for the most of the year. And then that D core has just been so steady that even when they do get into maybe a little bit of a bad situation, they never really get hemmed in. and they're able to battle back. So I really like Minnesota this weekend. I just think they're the way more consistent team. I feel like even if Michigan gets out to a quick lead like they did against Ohio State or they did against Minnesota last year, the maturity is enough to bring Minnesota back into it. And I think Justin Close is playing his best hockey.
Mm-hmm.
He's really challenging shooters. I've tried to bait some of the players and coaches into explaining what's happened. They don't buy it. They say he's the same goalie that he's always been. He's calm. He's whatever. No, Close is playing more aggressive. He's trusting his reads. I think he's getting really good scouting reports on the players he's going up against, and he knows that. I don't think he's going to show his little book about, what he's got on Fantilli and Brindley and Samoskevich about what they tend to do, but he knows. He scouts these players, and he knows what their tendencies are, and he plays aggressively to shut them down. So I think we're going to see an entertaining game, lots of goals, and I know Bob is probably not thinking about this, but if he wins the conference tournament, he gets an extra $15,000. If I was Bob, I would say, hey, if I get this bonus for tournament champs, well, we're going to Murray's Steakhouse on me.
There you go.
He already got $30K for winning the regular season, so the extra 15 is just gravy on top.
Oh, Connor, you missed it. Didn't you ask Bob a couple of years ago when he missed it when they did the percentage thing that he missed the $30,000 bonus?
Yeah. He's like, I would have maybe argued for the conference standings a little bit differently. Maybe win percentage of possible points was the way to go. $30K.
What do you do?
He's already got the $15,000 locked up for the NCAA tournament. So it's bonus season for Bob. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Bonus season. Well, I'm going to go with Minnesota, but you know what? Either way, I'm just going to try to enjoy it because I think it's going to be great hockey either way. I don't see any blowouts anyway. I don't see any team just caving and getting blown out. Like something you could see in the regular season. I just don't see that happening. I would love to see an overtime game. I think that would just be I would just love that. Just close out Mariucci the way it is right now. The old Lake Mariucci with a fun overtime win in front of 10,000 people.
Free hot.
Enjoy those giant corners for one more night because they're going away.
Yeah,
we'll talk more about that in overtime.
Oh yeah.
Are we going to talk? Are we going to talk awards on the podcast to close thing out?
Do you want to? Because
we can.
I know Connor's got some feelings on this.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, let's. Okay,
just because it's news for the week.
Yeah, I know. I'm just going to start out by saying that I think a lot of players got split votes because there's so many good players. And I think some players got votes because maybe they're not taking as many 5-minute majors and getting kicked out of games. And then you never know, Veeks. People could be just voting just to be bitter.
Or just voting on points. They just go to the stat page and they go, who's the leading scorer here? Gets my vote. Who's the second leading scorer? That gets my vote. I think we have a lot of voters like that, not just in college, but in the NHL.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, who wins the Norris? Who wins the Norris Trophy in the NHL?
Yeah, exactly.
It's usually like the top point producing defenseman.
Like
it's not
Jacob
the best
Slavin
defenseman.
Yeah. Despite what happened, let's hear your thoughts, Connor.
I can live with whoever wins Player of the Year, right? But Fantilli not even being in the top 3 just doesn't sit right with me. I mean, you put 60 points up as a freshman, and I know it's not all about point totals, but when you consistently are the one creating Michigan's offense for one of the top teams in the conference for the better part of the year, and even missing games with suspensions, like I think you alluded to, and Team Canada duties, like if you're still producing at that level, you're still one of the top players in the conference. Whether you like to throw elbows or play your best WWE impression, that all aside, but at the same time, he's still one of the top players, and I'd argue the best player on Michigan. I know obviously positional differences with Luke Hughes being on the blue line and being a year older, taking a little bit of a bigger leadership role might play into that. But still, for what he's meant to Michigan's lineup, I mean, look at the games where he didn't play. That duel in the D game, they barely scraped by Michigan State. and ended up having to score in overtime, which Luke Hughes, funny enough, was the OT winner in that with, 0.2 seconds left. But the other 2 games he missed against same team, Michigan State, Michigan couldn't pull away. I mean, it was a 2-1 loss and a 2-1 win, split on a home-and-home series. I mean, if you look at the team they are without him, they lose so much depth. They lose so much of their scoring. I mean, I'd argue that's what makes him arguably their best player and one of the best players in the conference. So.
Okay, Viggs, how about another thought? Was Close robbed of anything?
It's tough, I think, with the goalies because, if you look at the stats, Bischel sees more shots than anyone. And I know Notre Dame didn't play the defensive structure that we're used to the Irish playing. And maybe that's just something that people have in the back of their minds. I do think, though, Close has played at a very, very high level this year. And games when Minnesota's not playing well, he has risen to the challenge. It's not like he's a bad goalie back there. There's a big reason why Minnesota won the Big Ten by 19 points. Yeah. That's 6 games better than anybody in the league. That's a pretty huge gap. And if you just look at performance, I think that would explain why Minnesota's players are winning these awards, and you could argue where Close got robbed in that. Notre Dame didn't have a great year. It's interesting that
we thought they would.
We thought they would, but they were not. And I think when you start to look at the gap between the top team and everybody else, I think that's why you see all the awards going Minnesota's ways, because those players are so consistent. Yeah. Matthew Nyes gets 2 freshmen. Somehow they're the co-leading scorers in the league, I think, because of the structure and support and leadership he puts forward. Brock Favor comes back for another year. He's the core of the D that allows them to play such great team defense and vocal leadership. So I think it's pretty clear that from terms of what the players are right now, Minnesota's players at a different level than everybody else. You can argue potential for a lot of the Michigan guys, like potentially, projections to be NHL players. Yes, Fantilli's going to be a great player potentially. Luke Hughes, great player potentially. They do a lot right now, but they make a lot of mistakes too. So I think that's kind of the point for me, is that right now Minnesota's got better players. I think you go back even in the past, Ben Myers, very complete college player. I think that's why he won the award that year, because he's a complete player. So it's complicated when it comes to award season, but Minnesota did very well.
Yeah, and both teams did really well because, like I said, I think Minnesota did get like player of the year and defense player of the year because of that. Like, you see 19-point spread. I mean, that's probably where a lot of it came from, Viggs. How about Hobie? Was Cooley even on the list before, Viggs?
Well, Hobie's
technically all of them are, but
Hobie's interesting. That fan ballot thing where the coaches nominate 3 players from their team and 3 players from their league. That's all basically publicity for the Hobie. It doesn't really count for anything. So I know at the start we were all just like, oh my gosh, how could you not have Cooley and Snuggerud and Closer on this list? How do you just pick Faber and Lacombe as your 2 nominees? And they're not even in the top 10 at the end of the year.
Because Nyes wasn't originally either.
Yeah, Nyes wasn't originally either because Bob didn't want to upset the chemistry of the line by just picking one of them and leaving the other 2 off. So he was just going to say, well, I'm not going to nominate any of them. Then I think people are like, Matthew Nyes is pretty good. You should nominate him. He's like, okay, we'll nominate him. I mean, Minnesota could have like 5 or 6 nominees for Hobie right now. Yeah. And I don't think anyone would be shocked with any of them making the top 10. So it's pretty impressive. It just shows the depth Minnesota has.
Who's your final 3? Connor, I think Fantilli's going to be there. I think Nyes is going to be there. Yeah. I think we would all kind of agree on that. Who's the third guy, though?
Trying to remember the top 10. Honestly, Devin Levi from Northeastern has been real good. But I just don't know if he'll be in the top 3. That's hard to call.
Western Michigan kid?
Yeah, he's got 29 goals.
But I think that's
wasn't there over the
caught
weekend.
Up in points. That's where you get caught up in points. It's like, who is really the best player?
Well, some people were saying it's going all youth. Maybe they put them in there, but I don't even know how that's determined. Is it a vote thing, Viggs?
This is a vote thing. The actual winner comes down to the committee making the decision, but this top 10 is based on coaches making their ballots known. That's how this list gets put together. So it's not, the fan ballot's 1% of this, and then the committee is going to figure out who the final 3 are and then who's the winner.
Maybe Sean Farrell from Harvard. He impressed me in terms of a complete game when he was at Yost. Especially in that 4-4 tie, his line with Matthew Coronado was real good. So maybe he gets the third.
Honestly, I think whoever wins it is whoever does better this weekend between Fantilli and Nyes. You know how it just seems, if someone has a big weekend, scores the overtime win or gets 2 goals or just something like that.
Sure.
Because that vote goes in before the regionals, isn't it?
This is the last chance to get an impression made.
There you go.
Because once they go to the regionals, that's when they've decided the Hobie stuff.
Little recency bias.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see Fantilli, Cooley, Nyes be your trio. It wouldn't shock me. I think.
Hudson boy, those Eastern folks would be so pissed.
Yeah. Hey, but the Big Ten's a bad conference. That's a joke. If this gets clipped, that's a joke.
Oh no.
We're definitely clipping that one now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why 2 guys from one team? Has that happened before?
I think it's happened before. I think St. Cloud might have had 2 once.
Why not?
And Minnesota's pretty darn good this year.
Yeah.
I really think, when there's so many people saying that Nyes line is the best line they've ever seen in college hockey. I still think this defensive core is the best core I've ever seen in college hockey. They just don't make very many mistakes. And when one guy gets hurt, they're able to figure it out.
I was going to add that with Justin Close. Like he doesn't pick the defense in front of him for goaltender of the year. When their unit's that strong in front of him, like that's the problem.
Team with no weaknesses, Jupe. Team with no weaknesses.
Oh.
If there's any weaknesses, it's always up here, it seems like.
And this team seems pretty mentally resilient.
Correct.
I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people have talked about, are Nyes and Cooley, distracted by their NHL future. Toronto's been around all the time, and you never see a dip in Nyes' game. Cooley maybe gets a little frustrated, but I haven't seen any dip in his game.
How about that nice Instagram post last week? Doing what was it? With the movie. I'm blanking on the movie. When they all get drunk and they black out and they can't find the guy and he's on the roof.
Hangover?
What's the movie? Folks?
Hangover.
Yeah. He did a spoof on the Hangover with guys' names. Cooley, Cools. Asked the number. You guys ready? Ready to let the dogs out? Type of thing. It was pretty good. So these guys are into it. They know there's a future, but this is it.
Yeah, they're not checking their stats after the game. They're enjoying being college students, which is something I think is different about this team than other ones I've been around.
All right, Connor, you mentioned what you got coming out Friday, and there's an article that we could check out.
Yeah, just a feature on Jackson Hallam, how he got so fast, and a little bit of his work ethic and family in there as well. So not sure how it's all going to come together. Still working on it, but I actually have an interview with Sammy Walker tomorrow at noon Central Time. So that's the last interview for it. They play it in a 3-on-3 bandy league over the summer, and they ended up winning. So with
another speedy player.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we love Sammy Walker around here.
He's fast.
Yeah.
We do. I do love him. I think he's awesome. But
Hallam and Walker would be awesome on a bandy rink.
Yeah, well, I cracked the joke that he kind of outgrew the regular rink. He needed the extra challenge the way he skates out there. Like he needs the space to stop, space to just do anything really because he's so fast. He runs out.
Oh wow! Ask Sammy if he knows Vigo.
It's making trouble over here.
You have to give me the backstory.
That's for overtime. We'll save it for that. Well, Connor, thanks for coming on with us once again. You going to be a student next year? Can we rely on you coming back next season?
I'll be a student, but I'm going to be covering football in the fall, so I won't be on the hockey beat next year. I'm trying to find if anyone's listening and anyone needs a hockey writer next year, DM me, find my number, call me, send a letter to my house. I'm interested, but not going to be for the daily. We're going to let some younger folks get involved and keep up the quality coverage. So
that's kind of how it goes. You keep teaching, keep sending kids through, and that's kind of what school's about. And Veeks, I know you're putting together an attendance thing again. I know that.
Life always gets in the way. I'm just going to keep teasing our
I'm
audience.
not worried about it because I look forward to it every year.
And I've got the data. I just have to take the time. So it's coming, people. It's coming.
I love it.
I've got all the non-conference data. It's like, who actually shows up when the Gophers play somebody? Is it North Dakota? Is it Minnesota State? Is it St. Cloud? Or is it Michigan?
Could be.
It's Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Michigan is a big draw. And all those WCHA people, they don't show up when they play St. Cloud or Bemidji or Minnesota State or Duluth. They just don't. So something's happening at Marriott Arena, and it's Big Ten hockey.
They're forgetting about the WCHA. Yay. All right. Well, we'll thank Connor for coming on the show this week, and hopefully we'll have him back again sometime. Not sure. Hey, if there's the Frozen Four matchup,
ooh, will
that
be?
Have you. I'll be in Tampa. So I might have to have you on.
Okay. We'll be down there as well, so we'll have our crew. So
nice, that'll be fun.
Live broadcast? No.
Oh yeah.
Could
be. Yeah, I'm gonna do it live somehow. If I'm at my sister's house or whatever, I'm gonna do it live from the Warm Bake location. That's good. So once again, thank Connor for coming on the podcast this week. And we'll be back next week to recap the Big Ten Championship and preview the NCAA tournament. For those of you watching live, stay tuned for a bit of overtime. For the rest of you, thanks for watching the GPL podcast. All right.
Taking a risk tonight. So this is a 2015 beer made by Fulton Brewing called Worthy Adversary, because the Gophers sure have one this weekend. So
there you go.
Cheers to everyone.
Minneapolis beer. To you, Viggs. Look at
8 years old. We'll see.
I hope it's cold.
It's cold. It smells okay. Sometimes you worry with these aged beers. You never know if they're going to turn to soy sauce, especially with these stouts.
I'm going to keep you on full screen so you get a sip here. Let's see what happens.
This one's only 9.5%, so you never know how it's going to hold up. It's been in the cellar for a while. Still good. Still good. Good job,
there you
Fulton.
Go.
Nice job.
There you go.
I was a little worried. I had a backup beer just in case.
There you go.
Oh, boy.
Fun story about Fulton. When they opened, I happened to drive up to Grand Marais for kind of a weekend with my wife. And it was kind of an off season up there. It was November. And Fulton had just opened, I think. And they were having a private party at some restaurant. And because it was off season, Grand Marais up on the North Shore, a lot of things were closed. And so my wife and I just kind of walked into this restaurant, and they seated us at a table. It was kind of weird. We're it's kind of like a buffet thing. It seemed like a potluck. And we were just this is a little weird. And then eventually we figured out we're at a soft open for Fulton. And so they're pouring their first batches of canned or bottled beer and stuff. And they're just just stay, Minnesota nice.
Wow. Is that beer older than Connor?
Connor, in 2015, were you in middle school?
I believe I was, but I'm 21 now, so
Yeah.
He's legal now,
His
folks.
turn.
He was a
Yeah.
peewee. He was a U14 peewee.
yeah. No, funny story. I'm probably the worst skater out there. Not very good. So
I'm not good either.
yeah,
You could have scored that Jackson Nelson goal if you would have caught the pass.
I can
Nyes
catch
would
a
have had to
pass.
True.
feather it. Nyes would have had to put a little soft pass to you, though.
You think? Okay,
Yeah.
what I don't. It's like the defenseman turned when the puck came. It's like he thought the puck was going to go through.
Yes.
Who was the
He thought the
D-man?
puck was going to get past Nelson there, and I'm like going. I saw that, and I noticed on the replay from the TV or the camera behind the net. I'm like, he started turning, thinking the puck was going to get through,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm like, and then obviously Nelson just like, well, he could sit there for 5 minutes, put that puck in. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was Christian Krieger and Nash
Yep.
Nienhuis.
Yeah,
Both
they're solid.
totally-
They've been solid.
Totally
this
looked
year.
away. Yeah, Krieger's a good defenseman usually. I was shocked. But
Couple
man.
open net goals.
yeah. It's all too easy for the Gophers against Sparty.
I think it's in Sparty's head now because that's ridiculous. Because they don't play that bad against anyone else.
They started well. Like they played well in the first period. They just got outchanced.
And we said that in the podcast that they needed to play. They needed to get a couple goals. We know they could probably get one, but if they didn't get 2 or 3, they were in trouble, Viggs. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. St. Cyr didn't play great either. Like he gave up rebounds. He didn't look very solid.
Yeah,
So.
well, that goal that went off, what was it, the
Oh,
glass or
Glass?
stanchion, wherever it hit and bounced? That's just tough.
Brand new pegs at Mariucci this past weekend, folks.
Are they going to be fresh for this weekend?
Yeah,
That's the
they're-
$1 million question. Okay.
I have a feeling they're going to be out there with the drills, making sure those pegs are perfect when the game starts. I'm sure there's a lot of eyes on Craig Floor's staff.
I love that this has become a bit for Eric Portillo. I love it. It's hilarious. The memes back and forth have been fire.
Well, I thought Dobish was worse, but
You know who was worse? Who's the
Napier?
Ohio State Napier, Tommy Napier. Because, he needed a water break during some of those zone possessions by the Gophers.
Yeah.
well,
They
I
bring
mean,
me
so
out a snack and a water.
they were yellow pegs too. Floor was telling me they should have painted them red. It's like nothing's changed.
yeah.
But he says he's been looking for a long time, and he just happened to finally find some that worked with their system. And that was the problem. They couldn't find anything, and they're a little bit longer.
Well, that's what the NHL did with their pegs recently. There's an article in The Athletic, I think maybe today, by Michael Russo and a couple other people, because Russo knows that the NHL has been clipping every time the goal comes off in these situations to kind of evaluate what happens. And they're not doing an investigation on Goalie Nation and trying to figure out who the violators are. They're trying to figure out why it's happening. And I think, they're seeing this reverse VH technique, where the goalies are kind of wrapping things around. And you're seeing goalies now, when they go into that position, shooters are trying to pick that short side top corner. So they're starting to push their shoulder into the post, which is, I think, what happens. And when you have goalies like Dobesh and Portillo who are big, they want to do that. And then the net gets a little off. And if the pegs aren't in just the right way, they come off really easily.
I was gonna say that's Portillo's issue, and then occasionally he just kicks right off of it with his skate, and it goes. And like,
He's a big guy.
I don't think it's any malice. I don't think it's him trying to game the system or anything. I think he just straight up forgets, and he's a big dude.
Well, they know that at Mariucci, those pegs at the Zam end were not normal.
And they know they won't get called for it.
Unless they do it
So-
4 times in a period, which Dobish eventually got called on.
Yeah.
And Dobish had 2 penalties in the first period in that game, Connor.
Well, I think his demeanor got him the penalties too, because he was just being
yes.
kind of an idiot out there.
Yeah. But he pushed it off again. He finally got called. Because they're warning him. They're going to say, hey, we know these nets are not the best, but we know you're not doing this accidentally. We'll give you another chance. And then he does it. And then what is it? He came out and did he almost check somebody? Oh, he faked going down because he's put his skate out, but he came out.
Yeah, he went out in front of Brodzinski as Brodzinski was coming across the top of the crease. And They're like 2 minutes for trying to make everyone look bad.
And then, of course, this is the last game at Lake Mariucci, Vigs.
That's right. It's time. 15 years in the making to make this change. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are making an issue just to make an issue. The game is not more exciting on the Olympic ice. It does not promote offense. It promotes defense. It promotes defensemen staying between the dots and not chasing the puck into the corners. And it slows down the power play. And it's bad for the Gophers, I think, going into the tournament when they get that extra space and then they go to a smaller rink and everything happens a little bit faster and it gets to be a challenge. So unfortunately, that's the hand they've played the last 30 years, finally changing. I think the biggest thing will be the corners being
not that
moved
much
around
though.
a little bit.
I mean,
well, if they move the red line
a little.
If they move the goal line back a little bit, I think that would help. And the radius change, I think, will help a little bit.
Because the goal line was already moved back once.
Yeah.
But
once the corners change,
the issue.
Yeah, once the radius of the corners change, it should shrink that area back there. And all of a sudden you're closer. I was pointing out to somebody when I was at Excel, I was like, if you see like the railing, that's how deep the corners go at Mariucci. And at Excel, like there's nothing there. Like you're almost to the hash marks by the time the boards get straight again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but they're going from a 20-foot radius to 22 feet. NHL's 28 foot.
Yeah. Not feasible to do.
Correct. They would be cutting out the corners. It'd be a big gap with the crowd and everything. It would be goofy. Well, when the Michigan Twitter account, it's been a year and Minnesota still hasn't figured out the peg issue. I think I remember that. Oh, and I love it. What was it? The Minnesota Twitter account, used the word corn today for the Michigan
for
color.
The maize. Yeah.
I love it when schools take these just shots at each other. It's just, it makes it more fun. Just don't take it so seriously. Have some fun with it. Of course, that's how I was doing all week too. And they don't have maize; it's corn. It's corn colored.
Pretty much.
But I can't figure out why people are like, why are they doing this? I'm like, well, if the players and the coaches want it, that's kind of the ultimate reason to make the change. If you have to replace the refrigerant system anyway, hey, let's just do this as well because the players and coaches want it. It's not about what the fans want. It's, hey, you bring, like you said, Mike Ramsey, or not Mike, Mike. Jack Ramsey was telling us he was promised that, when he came in, they were going to make the rink smaller. Finally, it's happening.
And it's happening because of all that TV revenue that the Big Ten is making, because this is not a donor-funded project. The U is actually footing the bill for this.
Wait, it's not WCHA money?
But typically enhancements at the venues are paid for by like a donor or someone. This one, they're just going to take the loan out and pay it off, which is interesting. The U traditionally does not do that. I can't think of a project in the last 20 years that's just been paid for by the athletic department and not a donor. Pretty amazing. I'm
kind of interested to see how it goes on the ends of the arena, because the length is not changing, but they're going down a foot and 1 foot 4 inches. So even those seats there are not changing. All of a sudden, the boards are going to come down a foot, and all of a sudden their legs are right there, Vigs, or it's going to be a little different, especially on section 1 and 24 down on the ends.
Yeah, so the Zambonis will have a little ramp to go up and down.
Well, it already goes down. Surface. It's just going to go down even further.
Yep. So I don't think you'll see a big difference.
Brever. I'll be able to see over Portillo then. Because Brever he's right behind the opponent. Well, he's right behind the goal for where Michigan would shoot twice. But obviously Portillo was there in the second period. Oops. No, I'm hitting the wrong buttons here. It'll be interesting. Yeah, like Craig has told us that the company's moving in Monday morning. They'll have some offices there or do whatever, or just get set up for construction, because that's a lot of demolition, Vigs. It's a lot.
Well,
That's a lot of concrete they got to get rid of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ritter Arena the rest of the way, and they don't want this project to bleed into the season.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to get this done. And I'm sure Bob wants his team practicing on the new size before they start playing there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a hard deadline. It's not something you usually see in college hockey like this.
Interesting. It looks like Scott was watching at least earlier. He's the one who texted me about the ticket things. Hi, Scott. Hopefully you're still watching.
I don't know if you listen to the coach's show, but Bob was pretty adamant that Minnesota was in charge of the ticket prices for this.
Really?
I think Minnesota drove the prices to be $20 and $30 for these, but the Big Ten had to agree to it because all this revenue is shared by the conference. So Michigan gets a cut of this gate for this amazing atmosphere they're about to play in front of. But I think it was a negotiated thing that Tom McGinnis really was like, hey, we need this for atmosphere, for our fans, for us to have a good crowd. And everybody signed on, but I think they had to agree to it. So point of clarification to anybody who's a Moscow Show listener. So Connor, is Michigan going to stick with their coaching staff next year?
Ooh.
So that's the thing. They're all on the prove it deals, right?
Right. They're all 1 year
everyone.
deals. No one has a contract for next year.
I think you keep the band together. They've proven they can do it this year with 6 weeks to prepare. And that's my thing. We didn't get into like coach of the year or anything. Bob should be credited as coach of the year because he kept all those guys together. Even if you say, oh, he had a stacked roster, yeah, and he constructed it. But I still think Naurato should have been in the running there instead of Steve Rollick from OSU. For many reasons, but I think that the biggest is that when Naurato takes over with 6 weeks to go and is given this roster, and guys could have jumped to the OHL, guys could have left, even though they're in college hockey, they could have just decided this isn't for me. I signed on for a different coach. I signed on for a different program. Done with the drama. I'm leaving. And some people left over the summer. Not sure if it was those reasons or what. But when that final roster still made it to the first game and they started winning at the beginning of the season, when they put up 9 goals on BU, who's the number 5 team in the country right now, like can't forget that, and stayed the course even when things got tough. I feel like that's a sign of a pretty darn good coach.
I think it was more of Minnesota won by 19 points.
Yeah, no, exactly. And he should be credited to that. But I just think for Naurato not to be even a finalist for it just seemed a little weird. And it wasn't an interim tag thing because some people were worrying about that. He was on the ballot. I know because I checked the box. But I had him, Bob, and Adam Nightingale.
I had Bob, Steve, and Adam. So I think it's interesting, though, with Michigan. They only have 3 letter of intents signed for next year. I think Moldenhauer, Rao, and Shafisky. And none of those players are really like first-round draft pick type guys. So I wonder what's going on there. I think Naurato is a great skills coach, great assistant coach, but I think with like the discipline and the special teams on the penalty kill side, at least, makes me worry long term for the Wolverines how they're going to go.
Yeah,
is there one I'm missing for letter of intent?
Mikey Burchell, I thought signed his. Don't quote me on that yet. Okay. Trying to find the college hockey.
I usually go with Heisenberg for my list. For analyze, they're usually pretty good. He's pretty complete, and he's only got 3. And none of those guys are like, okay. They haven't played development team program stuff. They lost a couple guys to decommits. And I think if you're Michigan, typically you're in the battles for the Iserman type people. You're
Right.
in the, once Granado gets fired and, there's a couple Badger commits out there, I'd be all over like a Will Scahan or, some of those guys that were committed there. And I think that's interesting to me. And it means in my mind that the players don't know what's going to happen at Michigan and who they're committing to. And they don't want to sign on the dotted line until they figure that out. So I think it's interesting.
Who does Wisconsin have signed? And can they get out of it because of a coaching change? Or do they still? I think you actually answered this. They still do need to get permission to do.
They still have to get permission, but they have a huge class. William Whitelaw, Finn Brink,
Boston Buckberger. Greatest name ever.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a lot of guys signed already. I guess Brink isn't signed yet. So
Aiden thinks
Brink, Scahan, and Uhlenkamp are some of the big guys who haven't signed that are committed to Wisconsin. And I'm sure their phones and Twitter DMs are blowing up because those are pretty highly sought after players.
Has the Lucius family started Gentry University?
They might have to start an AHL team.
Oh!
And a Sanford Health Center, if I'm just going to pile on top.
Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So the Sammy Walker thing, Connor.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
We kind of... Okay, well, the whole last season, we ripped on him because, he just didn't really show up. But the thing is, Viggs is like, you know what? He's not in the right spot. He shouldn't be playing center. He should be on wing. And the time he did play wing
against North Dakota
was the Friday game at North Dakota, and they lit him up. And he was really good. And we felt he was in the wrong position because it took until the playoff game against Penn State until he got a power play point. He ended up scoring, but was it the almost entire season?
He got a power play goal against, I think, Michigan State, and it was because DeRitter instinctively slid across expecting a one-timer, and Walker fumbled the pass, had time to dust it off, and the goalie was already down, and he fired it over the shoulder because the goalie was already down. It wasn't exactly a good goal. And it was just like time and time again, he would get these passes on the flanks and he would do nothing with it. And he's a chaos player. He's a transition player. He is not a structure player. He's not a good defensive player below the dots. I think he lasted at center with the Iowa Wild for like 2 periods. And Tim Armey's just like, you're not playing center anymore. You're going to wing. And he's been great there. He's been a really good AHL player at wing. And I just don't understand why he got forced into that square peg when he's around. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And so I had a hard time letting it go.
Well, I don't blame you. But the thing is, he got all the opportunities too. He was on the first unit in the power play when he wasn't performing, when he probably shouldn't have been.
And they would take 70 seconds, 80 seconds every power play. Mm-hmm. And so then that second unit has no time. I know he's in the NHL right now, Brian. I know this. I wrote about him when he's a freshman, when he played on the wing, saying, look at this player, look how good he is for the Athletic. Like, I had clips and everything. I was like, this guy is a dynamite player. Didn't need to play a lot junior because he's so good. He's so fast. He's so effective in transition, forecheck, penalty kill, on the rush. He just can't play down the middle. So,
and of course,
I've hardly ever publicly gone after a player like this, but I was just like, for this team to be good, he needs to be good. Like, they were just missing last year, and I just felt like that team last year was all in a funk. Like, they were not good body language, not good on the bench. Totally changed this year. So
cool.
And that's where it was. And then, of course, he becomes successful in the AHL. He's made an NHL debut. And people were like, well, what do you think of him now, GPL? What do you think of him now, Vigo? It's like,
Fair.
we never said he was a terrible player.
Yeah.
Never said he wasn't talented.
No. His Gopher career, points wise, effectiveness wise, was very flat. His last season wasn't all that different than his earlier seasons, Vigs.
Yeah, he was the same player every year.
But his position didn't help him in that either.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah. And I showed every media availability, showed my face, waited for him to, take a swing at me. Never did. Asked nice questions about his hockey camp and his NIL opportunities there, but oh well. I wish him the best. Enjoy talking to him tomorrow. He was really big when he was young on acceleration, or First Athlete was the place he went. And he's always been fast. So he's been speed training forever. He's really focused on that. I wonder if Jackson Hallam did the same thing, like that.
Funny enough, didn't do speed training.
Oh,
I was talking to his dad. He skated a lot with his brothers. Went to like rinks, learned how to skate, and just was out there. But he'd call like some of the skating rinks just to see skating clinics, I should say. His dad would call and see if they had a spot open. And they'd say, "Oh no, we're full." And then he'd mention the name Jackson. And then all of a sudden, there's a spot open for him. So yeah, that's what he led with. He's like, if that tells you how fast of a player he was. Like,
attended so and so speed camp and already fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Big old asterisk next to the roster. Was fast when he got here. Made him 1% better.
Kids who have attended our camp have gone on to play at Michigan.
Yeah. No, I was going to say with the Sammy Walker thing, Michigan tried that with Rugger McGroarty at times this season where they threw him at center. I think it lasted a period. They tried him at center because technically he's played center before and played it for NTDP. Did not go well. Moved him to the wing immediately and put Gavin Brindley there. And even Gavin Brindley, I don't really see as a natural center, but he's capable. That's why having TJ Hughes has been so big for him to just step into that role. So.
You need competitive, capable defensive players at center. Jackson Nelson, Aaron Huglen for Minnesota have been so key because they are responsible guys and they know how to play the position. And Logan Cooley is just good enough where he can kind of get away being an okay defensive center because he doesn't have to spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
I think on a different team, Logan Cooley might struggle at center.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I don't think he has the transition where he's going right to the NHL if he played at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, they just had a couple guys sign. No, Ryder Rolston just signed with Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Trying to think of who else. Someone else signed, I swear. Maybe I'm wrong.
Not
I
sure.
gotta Google it.
So are we doing this in a couple weeks, guys? Michigan and Minnesota at the Frozen Four, because it's likely going to be a 1-4 matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Michigan gets to that 4 seed status, they get put on brackets that meet up in the semifinal.
Yeah.
That, as in, I went into my NCAA deep dive on how the rules work.
Yeah.
If you're the 1 seed, you're not 1, 2, 3, or 4. You're a 1 seed. And if you're a 13, 14, 15, 16 seed, you're a 4 seed. Like, they don't technically have that 1/16 stuff. Even though that's what they've done historically, they're not tied to that.
Yeah.
So who knows what they're going to do? This is an all new committee doing the bracket. They've never done it before, so there's no track record for them. So I think USCHO has been hinting all year that this group might be a little bit more flexible on some of the bracket integrity stuff. I don't think they do that just to get clicks. Jim Connolly is not necessarily that kind of guy. He likes to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Woden, I think he sometimes likes the quicks from something fun.
Yeah, I'd agree there.
You know, USCHO is more the group that wants to be right. CHN can sometimes be a little cute with their stuff. So I think USCHO might know something about this committee that, they've said, we might do things differently.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of want to see a Minnesota Holy Cross 1 versus 16 in Fargo.
If North Dakota doesn't make it, I think that's what I want too, because I think that provides the best atmosphere.
Because
really
there's going to
would.
be a lot of North Dakota fans there
Yeah.
putting on their Holy Cross jerseys that they bought back in 2006, whatever it
And
was.
I'm kind of okay with that. And I'm sure the Gophers would be okay with that too. I think the Gophers would be fine playing North
totally
Dakota
want it.
or Holy Cross. Like
Yeah,
bring it on.
I'd say if they're worried about an away crowd, if they're playing somewhere, they got bigger issues if they're trying to win a national championship, Like focus on the ice, don't focus with the crowd. Can't really affect them. So
Because
that's
Minnesota
always
State
been my
let
take
that
on it.
home crowd happen in Providence.
Yeah.
It kind of got in their head a little bit.
They're
BU at Fargo, North Dakota, that got in their heads.
Would they put Minnesota State in Fargo and have Minnesota play them even if they were number one? Even no, because technically 1-4.
Feel like Minnesota State has a chance to be a 3 still if they get in, based on what I was looking at.
Okay.
So,
But Northern Michigan's been playing really well. I don't know what Grant did up there, but he's got them playing well for once.
yeah.
Connor,
could be
what were you going to
interesting.
say?
I was going to say they play what? They play Northern Michigan for the CCHA this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if Northern Michigan ends up making it in instead of Michigan State this year for that third Michigan team.
Well, Michigan State's they're 16.
No, they're not. They're not making it
Yeah,
in, but imagine if the auto bid.
I'm going to pull up my scenario that gets Michigan State in. I have
Is
it.
there one scenario?
There's a scenario for them to get in. It's kind of like when Minnesota got knocked out kind of deal. But you talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to pull it up.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time of year.
Yeah.
It's just
Michigan Tech not playing. I wonder how that's going to affect him being out of it early. And
I think those teams should be Michigan Tech, Ohio State, Penn State is in deep shit.
Yeah.
They're in trouble because they didn't finish the season well at all.
No.
And they haven't played.
Yeah. And St. Cloud
It's going to be 2 weeks
still
already.
hurt,
Pardon?
right? St. Cloud State still has a lot of injuries on the blue line too, or are they just getting back?
Yeah, that's where North Dakota's got their chance because St. Cloud State is not in great shape right now.
Yeah.
But North Dakota has to win.
Yeah. And Colorado College, Chris Mayotte, former Michigan assistant coach, with a big sweep of Western.
Minnesota scored a touchdown. It's 7-4. Wow, really? I didn't know that. They were saying touchdown in the chat. I'm like, what the heck? Apparently they were down 3-1. And wow,
I saw some live tweet about Jordan Bennington getting did he get the boot or some sort of penalty?
Yeah, chat. What was it? Somebody said a match penalty or something.
Yeah, he tried to
What
fight
happened?
through. Let me pull this up. I had it up.
Let's see tweets. Yes, booted. What happened, folks?
Okay.
How did Bennington get? He get in a fight?
Oh,
I saw some things going by.
Okay,
Hartman
never mind.
scored on him. He dragged the leg on him a little bit, not even intentionally, and he didn't like it.
Oh, jeez.
Like random.
Never mind at Michigan State. They can't get in. There was one earlier, but it's gone.
Well, the thing is, a lot of the math kept changing. Like, what was it? Saturday night? No, one and two are
the CHN bracketology thing. The matrix broke. Like they must have had something wrong because they're missing like 20% of the scenarios. So they must have had something in their code that wasn't right. So once again, USCHO wants to be right. CHN wants to be fast.
Yeah, but they don't have that same feature, do they? Does USAHL still have that feature that shows here the percentage of being locked into a spot?
Nope, they don't want to put that out there because that's.
So that's when you go. That's when you go right to Bruley and say, "Hey, Bruley, what's up?"
Well, he sent me the 4,000 scenarios, so.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, like they do the work.
It helps when. So Connor, the guy who created USCHO, Tim Bruley, literally sits right next to us.
Oh, there you go.
In
updating all the scores,
he sits
on the
there.
website.
He will likely be there. He will be sitting right to my right this weekend. I'm guessing. He's got his spot in the press box. You know, he started that site obviously back in the 90s. Extremely smart. And he's kind of the one who kind of put together that whole pairwise thing, isn't he, Viggs?
Yep.
It's basically his formula that it all comes about. And so, like he said, he sends you an Excel file with, would you say, 4,000 combinations?
4,096 scenarios. That's what's left right now.
And a lot of them will be done. A lot of them will get Friday night because there's so many games being played Friday night.
Yep.
Because there's 5 teams that aren't locked in that are, 7 teams, I think, that are potentially going to get in an auto bid that aren't locked in right now.
If there
10
are no
teams
upset,
are pretty much in. Cornell still on the bubble. Western Michigan, Merrimack, Minnesota State, Alaska are bubble teams. UND, UMass Lowell, is that who UML? Are they still live in Hockey East?
They are.
Yeah, it's
Providence,
alive.
Northern Michigan.
You know, obviously CC and North Dakota are still alive.
Yeah.
Canisius, Holy Cross, yeah.
I'm hoping Alaska makes it. That would be such a cool story for them as a program. I mean, you can't really ask an independent to do much more.
And Johnny Sorensen's on that team who got told to look elsewhere to play hockey, which I felt bad about. He's such a good kid.
Oh, yeah. But what, I mean, what's he supposed to do? He had a lot of guys coming in.
I know, but keep a spot on the roster for him and let him practice if he wants to. And maybe Johnny said, I don't want to do that. I want to do what Stoddard's doing. I want to play. Maybe that's what happened. Because Stoddard said, I get it. I just want to stick around. And maybe Sorensen needed the scholarship money or something. I don't know. So he went out there.
You guys ever see that 2010 Alaska intro video?
Animation. 2010. I think that thing's been out there a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
With the Top Gun bear.
Yes.
That thing's awesome.
Fantastic.
Alaska knows how to
need an intro like that.
Yeah. Alaska knows how to break out clip art and figure out how to make a video.
Yeah. Well, and I love that it's the boat that he smashes with the stick is a seawolf. Like the Alaska Seagulls. That's just a great detail. Like such good storytelling in it. Whoever storyboarded that, A+. The
only thing it was missing is they needed Clippy, the old Microsoft help.
Oh my god!
If they would have had Clippy in there somehow, that he could have bombed Clippy on his way to the rink, that would have been the best.
Oh my gosh! Viggs, we are so old by talking about Clippy. Really?
I know, right? Yeah.
Hey,
our chatters know this.
I might be young, but I know that one.
Yeah.
Clippy. Wow.
Do you guys want to hear my dream Fargo bracket though?
Oh God. Yes.
Okay. Minnesota, Holy Cross,
already wrong.
St. Cloud, and Mankato.
Close. North Dakota for Holy Cross. Ooh. Flip out. North Dakota somehow gets in.
True, yeah.
They play Minnesota in the first round, and then you got Minnesota State, St. Cloud in the other side. And then the other one that I like is Manchester. You put BU and Cornell up against each other, put Harvard, Ohio State together. Ooh. And then Bridgeport, you put Quinnipiac and Canisius together, and then you put Michigan and Western together.
Oh, so you think Michigan's going to slip?
Yeah, possibly.
We were really hoping for that last year. Western and Michigan.
I want Western and Michigan to play each other. And then Allentown turns out to be Denver, Merrimack, Penn State, Michigan Tech. They're like the misfits. It's like,
The mix.
I don't like any of your
Denver
matchups
almost
anywhere
fit.
else. Yeah. So you get Denver playing Penn State in Allentown. Maybe.
Yeah, but Penn State has a chance if they get a decent opponent that first game.
Well, if they play Tech and
That's what I'm
top
saying.
10
Because
Hobie finalist,
they're going to
Well,
need
they're
a
not
game.
scoring against
They're going to
them.
need a game because
Yeah.
if they don't get that game, it's going to be
they
tough.
don't need pretty goals. So they can play a Hobie candidate goalie and maybe be okay because they'll get 60 shots.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So in that scenario, it is possible to have Michigan, Penn State,
Send
Ohio
Quinnipiac
State, Minnesota in the Frozen Four.
If you line it up, that technically would be it.
Technically, but don't have to.
I still think it's tough for North Dakota to get in there.
I do too. I don't think they're beating Denver, but
Yeah. I was going to say they still have to beat Denver. And
But Denver's still, it's got a rival. You never know what happens when you're playing a rival in CC.
and then Burko's been pretty good for CC and net. So
I liked him at the NTDP like pre-tournament camp. He was real good.
Yep, there goes Vegas.
just- oh.
He's probably going to get a beverage.
No, I liked him when he was just kind of doing his workouts and whatnot. Just real
I'll
focused.
remove him for a second.
Just a real focused guy. He's going to be good. And they just signed Carson Muser, I think, from NTDP as well. So they have goalies for a while. Kronos
Now that
hurt.
you've been watching college hockey for a couple of years, what are your thoughts on the regionals? Not where they are, but what are your thoughts on the whole thing by itself? Because for me, you went with Rich. For me, I think regional weekend is by far my favorite weekend of the year.
It's fun.
It's just you just get so many good matchups. It's one and done. It's
And anyone can win too, like you said, like being
Yeah.
one and done. Like you can still have an upset. Nice.
extra baked, just like Duluth season over.
Ooh, that was fighting words.
Spicy.
Jeez.
Connor, they're like the little brother of the Gopher fans around here,
Yeah.
and they got pretty high and mighty after their national titles.
Yeah. Well, they had a pretty good run. What, 3 or 4?
They had a great run
Yeah.
after they almost ran their coach out of town. Sandlin almost got fired.
Jeez.
He almost took the Penn State job, but his wife didn't want to go out to
Well-
the East Coast.
Did you see about Rod Brindamore in that athletic feature? Joe Smith
Yeah.
wrote about he would have been MSU's coach. What a mess. I know it's a rule they're supposed to have a college degree if it's a public university, but
Tony Granato went to class when he was still coaching because he didn't have his degree yet. Wisconsin found a way.
Wow.
You guys remember that?
I do
Granato, Molesky was doing like a feature on Granato going to class with his
student
players.
athletes and student
You-
coaches.
Student coach. Head coach.
God.
And now poor Todd is fucking covering the NIT. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry,
I
Todd.
chatted with him when he was at Michigan because I just wanted to introduce myself and say howdy. I was like, "Are you gonna be, you gonna be at Yost next week?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Why not?" Like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Oh, because Wisconsin Big Ten tournament and people still care about Wisconsin men's basketball for some reason." Chucky Hepburn is good, to be fair, but he is fun to watch. But
Yeah.
it's just a down year for college men's basketball. Like, it's just, I don't know. It just
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a good one.
I literally stopped caring about college basketball in the 80s. I did notice on my like Facebook memories that I think I filled out a bracket back in 2016. It was the first time in like 15 years. And I did it was because we put $5 in and we're going to have a pizza party at work. I'm like, I'll just put in $5 and I literally did the CBS autofill bracket. Because I'm like, get a pizza party out of it. Oh, apparently they scored an 8th goal now. Jeez.
I got to check my fantasy league. Hold on.
Oh,
Well, I think I might have Hartman. I have not looked at this thing in a while, to be fair. We had
wouldn't that be something, Vigs? Big Ten school adds hockey and ends up being either UCLA or USC.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to take a donor to make that happen. Any donor who's got $80 million and doesn't want to give it to St. Thomas could probably start a D1 hockey school in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Players have we seen come
I'm
from
gonna get a drink.
California area too? Like, I mean, Cam York was real solid from that area. I think Dakota Raby was from there, from Michigan. Brennan Brisson, like, there's a lot of talent they could recruit out there, but they just got to break in.
Well, Ryan Johnson played
Yeah.
hockey in Anaheim. Like, he wasn't a local kid for Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know, I think if there was maybe a team out there, maybe he could have pulled them away.
Who else? I'm trying to remember.
Where's Zegras from?
Oh,
He feels like a Cali kid
yeah, he's got the hair.
and the attitude.
Yeah. Yeah, Bedford, New York.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. I'm trying to think. And like Arizona's nearby too. Arizona State get a little rivalry going.
mhm.
Arizona State in the Big Ten. You never know. That would not
I
work.
mean, Jess Myers has been pumping that story for a long time, and it just feels like the Big Ten does not want any part of that.
Yeah.
There's just some sort of thing there. I think if you just look at how Arizona State handled Herm Edwards as their football coach
Yeah.
and all the issues there, that might give some insight about why Big Ten athletic directors are not interested in having Arizona State added to their league.
Well, that and they have to be AAU, right? American.
I mean, that's
Association of Universities.
that's a thing that they point at, but I don't think it's necessarily a requirement.
Yeah.
Because when you
More
look at
an excuse.
more of an excuse.
Yeah.
I think if you got an athletic director or a president to have a couple cocktails like Jupe just poured, they might tell you it has to do more with how they handled the Herm Edwards situation than anything else. It's like that's just a university that doesn't handle things the right way. Of course, they might point back and say, well, look at how Michigan's handled their dirty laundry the last couple years, and you know, you should be one to talk.
Yeah. They'd fit right in.
They fit right in, right? You okay, Jupe?
Straight brandy.
Straight brandy.
Yeah.
Winner? Maybe second sip. Go for a second sip.
Oh, I've already had quite a few already.
Oh, okay. Connor's still got to write tonight, right?
Huh?
Connor, you're still writing tonight,
maybe.
right?
Yeah,
Maybe
probably.
writing. You got to get your feature done.
Yeah. It's got parts. I'm just waiting for that last interview. But
Okay.
no, I gotta
Yeah,
finish
water.
off. I gotta finish off a 5-page essay that's due Friday because I don't want to do anything tomorrow with March Madness and with finishing up the feature. So
How you
Oh,
traveling?
and
Road trip?
yeah, Saturday we're gonna drive. Just take the 10-11 hour trip and drive
You're
through.
driving, huh?
Yeah.
There's some
all
snow
this.
coming.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Well, tomorrow afternoon into Friday, so
I'm a little worried for my trip to DC. I don't fly very often, so
yeah,
Open.
I will be going to Tampa. That's the first time I will have flown since 2014.
Tickets have gotten a lot more expensive lately. We were
Really?
So our women's basketball beat, the four of them were looking at flying down to Baton Rouge because that's where Michigan got placed. $500 a person. So it was not feasible. That's like 10% of our budget for everyone to go. We're like, yeah, you guys get to drive, but they're gonna have a trip. So
I think it was St. Cloud. Their radio team was trying to do a GoFundMe
Yes.
so that they could cover the regional for student.
$2,500 they're looking for.
Yeah,
sounds about right. Yeah.
maybe. As we get back to the Big Ten, admitting another member, Nebraska, there's a big joke that I've always been told that the N on the Nebraska helmet stands for knowledge. And if you tell that joke to a Nebraska fan, they may not get it.
Oh boy.
Little left and right hook there. Just really hit them while they're down.
Worst school in the Big Ten.
Airfare for Tampa is why I'm doing Tuesday. I'm doing Tuesday to Monday, actually, myself.
Can you convince my wife that a Tuesday to Tuesday is a good trip for me, Steve?
Oh boy. I'm gonna try to, if they go to Fargo, I'm gonna try to drive up that Saturday. Try to cover it. Luckily, hopefully it'll be good weather because it's if it's crappy, I'm just not gonna go because that's just a dangerous area to drive in when there's any sort of storm. It's just
with the wind and the roads out to
and
Fargo
the
are
chances of
terrible.
the highway shutting down all the time, it's not great. So, but I believe that Saturday game, if Minnesota were to make it there, is a 5 p.m. game. So, driving up in the morning, 4 hours, it's really not that bad. So, and hopefully they would credential me. I'm hoping. I don't know what.
I think they would. I've been credentialed for every NCAA thing I've done. So
yeah, but I still get nervous about it though.
Scott's usually the one that says yay or nay. So they usually go to
Scott, you still watching?
They usually go to the SID and be like, really, this guy? And I'm like, yeah. So we've been pretty good. We haven't been too bad to everybody this year.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the Frozen Four too. So they don't want you to fill it out unless you're going to be there. So I'm going there either way, but I won't. If Minnesota doesn't make the Frozen Four, I'm not going to get credentialed. It doesn't make sense.
I bet you still could.
I probably could, but I'd rather spend the time with the girlfriend and actually enjoy.
You get in the box and you take photos. It'd be great. You could be like, did you see at the tournament game for boys hockey, they credentialed like this Bauer influencer in the box, and they were doing like videos of flybys in the state semifinal. And like, I don't know, we keep going back to the state hockey tournament because
that's fine.
I love it. And Connor, you know nothing probably about Minnesota State Hockey Tournament, but they are the biggest sticklers.
One, right?
They're Matabidi won the Class A.
Matabidi. That's Jack Becker used to play there.
Yep. And Minnetonka won the AA, where Jack Ramsey is a deep coach. He's not on the bench, but he helps. Steve Johnson, he's on the bench coaching. Sean Goldsworthy, St. Olaf alum, Umeå, my school, head coach. Anyway, so the state hockey tournament has traditionally been very strict on who they credential for anything. Like for the Prep Bowl, they don't credential recruiting sites. They don't credential like web-only sites for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But lately, the hockey tournament, they've started to credential like influencers for Bauer, like these two Canadian hockey weirdo guys that wear like the cowboy hats and like do all kinds of weird shit. Like they got credentialed. It's just weird. Like they just threw caution in the wind. I remember when Michael Russo started the Athletic, they wouldn't credential him.
Oh, until he made a stink of it.
And then they changed their mind. And I'm just like, what's going on at the MSH?
And the thing is, there's plenty of room up in that press box. It's gigantic.
Yeah, it gets full for the tournament, though. They get so many requests for that. But, I mean, some of these people are more influential than this influencer. And they got in the box for like a state semifinal game, taking iPhone videos of flybys and stuff and fist pumping, players. What the heck? Weird.
That seems a little weird.
Yeah.
That does seem a little weird. But, the X does have a huge press box. They could fit a lot of people.
It does.
Now,
it gets full.
Tampa, I remember being at Tampa in 2012. Tiny press box. Not what we'd be used to here in Minnesota. A lot of arenas don't have decent press boxes like that.
No.
And even Mariucci's got a pretty big press box for a college team.
It's just they don't have a lot of team area in the press box. That's why they kind of like...
Well, that's why they do cordon off the end there.
Yeah.
And really, that other side of the press box used to be, where some people used to be, but now it's been more exclusive to, like, that's where Michigan's video people would be. This is where, they don't, like, Jess Myers and whatever are not over on that side anymore. They tend to just put teams there. Sometimes team radio, I've seen that a little bit there, but they may put you over there, Connor. I don't know. We'd have to see what. Scott, you still watching? Where are you putting Connor?
I think it's going to get tight
this week.
I mean, Scott doesn't have to worry about me being there this weekend, unfortunately, but I'd love to be there. I just wish my spring break was like a month later.
Hey,
but I can't pass up this White House stuff. It's going to be
awesome. You don't pass up a chance to go to see the type of White House tour you're going to get, Vigs.
Yeah. Can't wait to bowl like 110 on the White House lane.
Yeah, but you're bowling at the White House.
The White House.
Yeah.
My half brother used to work at the White House many years ago under the G.W. Bush administration. And it's just, he's getting pictures of himself with the president in the Oval Office.
That's awesome.
It's like, wow.
My West Wing tour is before the podcast on the 22nd.
Hey,
so
live from the West Wing.
Live from the West Wing.
I'm trying to find a co-host that night. Since
Cardinal?
You're not around.
Cardinals Country Clomp?
I sent out an email to somebody. I don't know if they'll respond. We'll see.
Hammy?
No.
Brian Deutsch?
Oh, my God. I don't think Deutsche would do it.
I don't know. He still listens. Jack Ramsey and Eric Shearhorn? You get a trio? Now that
if I don't hear back from
this
person, I think I might hit those two up. They could be
fake Don. You got fake Don coming on?
He would never come on.
No, he wouldn't.
And he's a little detached from hockey these days, a little more. And I notice he's not posting as much anymore,
which is unfortunate for all college hockey fans.
Yeah. But I don't know who fake Bob is.
I don't know either.
I don't know who fake Bob is. Excuse me.
Corey with the fire tonight.
Oh, Siski. Oh, boy.
Poor guy.
We've had Siski on the podcast.
Yep. I like Bruce.
No, I'm trying to.
I'm passionate.
I'm attempting to get somebody, and if I hear back, I will see. He would make a good co-host, but I can't say anything more of that because most likely the person's not going to respond. But
happens.
I'm now super intrigued. I
know, but you'll be in the White House, dude.
From the West Wing.
If I were to get that guess, if you were,
I'll go in the Situation Room and I'll just be like, guys, I'm hardlined in.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could quickly chime in because obviously you can get. You don't need. You know how to get in. You're a member, so you can just get right on.
Might be a phone. I'll just dive in to the link.
Totally work.
Yep.
Kinger. No. Don't want to do Kinger. You just want to get to overtime. We will see. I've got a couple options next week. I don't know. Hammy's never been on camera before. You think he'd do it?
I feel like he's opening it up.
All right. What are you sending now? Are you really doing that? He won't.
Well,
on, really.
He threatened to come on. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Wow.
We had some potential OT guests that said maybe they'd come on. So just throwing that out there.
I'm just reading.
Who's the Lego guy?
What? Get the Lego guy?
Who's that?
That's Ian Bowie, isn't it?
Oh.
I think he was kind of refers to himself, a hat and classes. He's cowboy highs. Always, I don't know. He's not sitting in the same spot he used to.
Okay.
Yeah, Ian Bowie. I think he's referred to as the Lego guy. Well, there he is. He's in chat. No.
Didn't know him as the Lego guy.
Ian, what was the Lego thing? I can't remember that. He just declined in person.
Okay.
True.
So Connor, what are you most looking forward to this this trip? Does the Michigan Daily have like an itinerary of things they like to do when they come to Minneapolis? Are you going?
Four of you coming, right?
Are you going to Matt's Bar? Are you going to Matt's Bar for the original Juicy Lucy? Are you going to Blue Door Pub for the Lumberjack Lucy?
We don't really have an itinerary, so we're kind of just gonna get there, cover the game, and then head home the next morning after we don't sleep at the hotel.
Come to Maxwell's after the game.
Yeah, Maxwell's after the game is always a good call. Pizzeria Lola or Young Joni are highly recommended spots on the culinary front for college kids.
All right.
Ann Kim was just recently featured on Netflix for the pizza making series.
There you go.
She's a Korean American who came to the U.S. and or her parents came to the U.S. and wanted a better life for their daughter. They're like, "You're going to an Ivy League school. You're going to be like a lawyer or something." And she's just like, "I want to be an actress on stage." And then when her parents found out and she got typecast as Asian American role, she's like, "This isn't for me." And she got disowned by her family. And then she started this pizza restaurant, Pizzeria Lola. Which makes these awesome. Oh, Young Joni.
There we go.
I'm still here? I got disconnected.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, internet's
We
back.
all got disconnected, I think.
Probably you, Jude.
That was weird.
Probably the White House tapping into our podcast.
Yeah.
White House is like, wait, White House
No,
came up in our feed. We better check this guy out.
No, we
He's
all kind of
bowling
froze
here.
at once.
What?
Yeah. I thought
We
it was
all
me.
kind of froze here at once. I think it was actually StreamYard that kind of froze there for a second.
Yeah,
that was weird.
So anyway,
but I did
opened
open
this
up
place.
the program right as I did that, so that was kind of weird.
James
Sorry.
Beard award-winning restaurant, Young Joni.
Okay.
Which is pretty. You know, it's fancy, but it's pizza. They make like a kimchi pizza. It's great. Yeah.
Okay. I'll write that down.
Lady Zaza.
So, okay, someone's talking about how they remembered. I had forgotten Gold Pants. Anyone remember Gold Pants guy? What year it was? I know I've got some photos, but someone can tell me the year that they remember Gold Pants guy, because I know I got some photos. I just need a year to kind of look it up.
Who's Gold Pants guy?
Oh, I was a student that was
Student section person who was
And then there was some. I know there's a student guy who also wore the full green thing, like you'd see at the was it Vancouver?
like a green man.
Yes.
Yeah.
If someone can help me with some of the years, I know I've got photos of these guys. Oh, he says 2014-ish. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find something here. Oh boy. Good luck finding it. I have so many photos. It's not even funny. It's ridiculous. Way too many.
Yeah, but Connor, when your crew comes out, you got to do something culinary.
Yep.
Matt's is probably like the top one because the original Juicy Lucy, 2 patties, cheese stuffed in, but it's busy. You can get like a easier option at Blue Door University, which is over on campus, kind of on Como. Also a good spot. Probably easier to get a burger. But yeah, I think Young Joni would be good. Pizzeria Lola would be good, depending on how much time you have. But you should build something in.
All right.
Gold Pants guy got banned? I had no idea.
Yes, Corey, Nooks and Shamrocks are maybe better than Blue Door and Matt's, but it's different. And Nooks and Shamrocks are St. Paul. Blue Door is different. They do different stuff.
You love yourself some Blue Door. You love the Blue Door.
I know the owners. They're great.
There you go. Don't you know who I am?
So this could be Gopher Burger Live. We could talk about burgers.
There you
Gopher Burger Live.
A lot of good burger options around here. Burger Dive at the 331 Club, or not 331 Club, I think. Is that where it is? 1029 Bar. 1029 Bar has Burger Dive in it now. That's really good. Yeah.
There's
Gopher
not
Whiskey
really
Live. We can do that.
There's not
Gopher
really
Wisconsin.
not a lot of like good burger places in Ann Arbor. I mean, there's like Blimpie Burger, but that's
Really?
not very good anymore since they moved. I
We've got-
remember that from my first like visit that I remember when I was like 7 going there, and then when I got to campus, no longer the same location. So
I gotta say, we got like 15 great burger places
That's
in the Twin
fantastic.
Cities. Like, really good.
yeah, no, Ann Arbor, yeah, not really burger area anymore, but we do go to. There's a place called NYPD, New York Pizza Department, that's got
Ooh.
really cheap, huge pizza slices. So that's the go-to. But you just got to hit like kind of before the bars close, because then it's a madhouse. So
Yeah, we've gone to Maxwell's for the last couple of years just because some of our go-to places, like, well, we used to go to Campus Pizza a lot because that was Jim's
Yeah.
place, and it was good pizza, and it wasn't too crowded after games. A lot of times we get at Maxwell's, and it's not too bad either. So
Yeah, Frank and Andrea's college pizza place, New York Slices on Washington on your way towards 35 away from the game. Good slices, but nothing outstanding. Nothing like Punch Pizza or Neapolitan style like Young Joni or Pizzeria Lola.
oh, I might have to have some punch pizza on Saturday
Or,
before
yeah.
the game. I love me some punch. If you're playing the Mud Hens, what? What did I miss there?
Toledo?
No, I don't. Did I miss something here, Viggs?
The Meesville Mud Hens.
Oh, jeez.
Not Blaine. Connor Jupenice play in this men's hockey league that was up in Blaine. And sometimes we'd see Papa Berdzinski there, but it was like old man hockey, and we go out for burgers afterwards. And there's a team we played called the Mud Hens, who now has a player who's now the assistant coach of the Gopher women's team. Right?
there
She
you
was on
go.
the Mud Hens, right?
She was
She was.
her then boyfriend Brian or whatever his name. It's Jessica. Oh, what's her name? Jessica. What's her name? What's her last name?
Jeff.
I am. Just
You can just Google assistant coach of the University of
know.
Minnesota
My
Frozen
brain,
Four women's hockey team. Because they're up in Duluth where they're going to get 2 feet of snow this weekend.
Yeah, Duluth didn't make it. Minnesota took care of business, right?
Yeah, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mackie Samoskevich from Michigan, his sister was real close to beating Ohio State to make the Frozen Four, but Ohio State looks pretty good. So she assisted the opening goal, and then Ohio State took
Ooh.
over.
There's a good one. When will Michigan get women's hockey?
Not soon enough. It's the new president Santaono really shows that he likes the team, the club team that is, but it's like there's no real action to actually make a team.
When will any Michigan school get women's hockey? That's a total miss by the entire state. You have so many hockey programs in that state, you can't make room for one more women's team. I would almost think from a Title IX standpoint that the school would just be like, oh yeah, easy win.
Yeah.
Let's add a women's program to lighten the load on.
Or how about it just
else?
an easy win to say we were the first?
Yeah.
Like a Michigan or a Michigan State, just somebody says, I mean, what if some other school like a Lake State or just something like that becomes the first? That would be embarrassing for a place like Michigan State or Michigan.
Oh, 100%. And
to
like
get
MSU
beat out by a Western Michigan or something like that with a women's team.
Yeah. Well, that and like for Lake Superior State, I think Abby Roque from the women's national team is from Sault Ste. Marie. Like there's plenty of really good women's hockey players up there. They can try. Their men's team's not really doing a whole lot in the CCHA anymore, but I don't really think of the Sioux as a place I want to go to for school. So
Jeff Jackson would beg to differ. He thought that was a great place. He had that place humming.
With
Jessica Scott is her name. God, I can't even say it.
There you go.
She was a mean player.
Feisty.
I
think she played boys hockey growing up.
I think she did. Yep.
Yeah.
She blew out her knee at might have been St. Thomas or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
playing college hockey, and her recovery was in our boys league. Our men's league. And she was coach at Coon Rapids for a year or two. And then she became the video person at Minnesota.
Yep. And
then I ran into her there and I had a chat with her a couple of years ago. And then all of a sudden, they had the coach leave right before the season and they needed to fill a spot and she ended up getting it.
Then a Mike Hastings, Grant Patolny situation. I hope it works out better for Jess than did Grant. Well, I mean, Grant's done very well for himself, but Grant fell into that job.
Grant wants to come back and be the coach here, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Good luck. Although if they beat Minnesota State, people will still be pumping that train. So,
does Minnesota? Do you think they would love to play Minnesota State again?
Oh, I think so. Without Dryden McKay in that, why not? No one's afraid of Minnesota State without Dryden McKay.
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like that's a good matchup. I guess if you go directly 4-13 right now, Michigan ends up playing them, and I feel like they got their number there in terms of just scoring. But
I think it would be more of a head case with Minnesota than anything else.
Yeah.
Don't think so with this group.
Well, maybe, but we also thought last year they were going to win the championship, and we thought they were going to get through it. And
the Big Ten just needs to break through.
True.
I mean, 2018, you send 3 teams out of 4, and none of them bring home the chip. It's just that's And then we made the jokes about the WCHA, but it invites those kinds of jokes if you don't win anything.
Or how about the last team to win it for the Big Ten was Michigan State?
Yeah.
I don't right.
Yeah.
I
don't think you can really chirp that the Big Ten's the best conference until they win a title.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think everyone's in a good spot right now in the Big Ten, but they still have to prove it.
Yeah.
And I think Minnesota's got a team that has the ability to prove it just because of their makeup, but
well, and I almost would
show
worry,
me
if Michigan, Minnesota play each other 1v4, would they beat each other up for the title game in terms of just playing hard against each other and wearing each other out? Or I don't know if
I don't think they play that style where they would do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but it's going to be tougher for Michigan to get there too.
Yeah, because
you're playing a 5 or a 6.
Yeah,
in your regional final.
If they play BU or Harvard,
that's
they did all right against Harvard. I think they did better than they did against BU, because if they didn't have a 4-minute 5-on-3 power play, that first game goes differently. Which broke the stat system at Yost. Fun fact. They were doing it all by hand because
but the stat system sucks this year. It's been just literally a pile of shit.
Yeah.
It's broken down. I remember Minnesota when it failed with them early in a game, and they literally had to go do the entire game by hand.
Oh God.
Well, Minnesota had to redo it.
Yeah.
After the game ended.
Yeah. They went back and went through the game and had to redo it. All by hand. And then, was it last weekend? Was it, I think it was Omaha. It was Omaha, North Dakota. They were saying our stats, we've got problems with our stat system. Stick with us. It's it's happening everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It just crashes or does whatever. It's just a crappy system. And a lot of these, apps and websites are all linked to that data. And when it goes down, people can't get scores. It's just, let's go old school and call Arena. But you've seen it all year long. You look at even the CHN app or whatever, you'll see a score that's just, it's a 7:00 game. It's 11:00 at night.
Yeah.
They never got data from the system.
Mm-hmm.
And they can do it manually, but it's not as simple when you got these big.
There's not many Tims out there. Tim is checking Twitter for scores sometimes, and
he is
putting it in by hand just so his thing is the most accurate.
And like I said, he will be there. I'm guessing he'll be there Saturday night, like I said, right next to me if I'm not shooting. And he will have back end code up on his screen as he's doing updates. He's doing things on USCHO.
The font has gotten bigger over the years, but
that is true.
it's not size 4 anymore, but it's still pretty small.
I'm hoping he's there.
He should be, I would think.
I'm going to ask him about the big USCHO.
He said we're in if we're there.
Okay, I will be in Tampa, so I need to know where it's going to.
Yeah, Tim and I had a good chat last weekend. So,
is it a formal party? I never heard of it. Is it? Hopefully, it's not too formal.
It's not too
Tampa.
formal.
It's got to be.
It's hockey people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's too bad about Washington. I mean, you can't give up a trip like that for Washington D.C., but boy, what a game you're gonna miss.
Tough week to pick.
Obviously, Cappy's missing it too. Cappy's at his brother's wedding.
That's right.
So it's going to be Pat Micheletti probably with Pizzo or something like that.
In Chicago.
They're doing a full 30-minute pregame or something on Big Ten Network.
I think Pat's excited to be in Chicago, but I think he kind of wishes he was there too at the rink.
So I wonder if that means Alex won't be there, Alex Micheletti, because every time his dad's there, he's there.
Or
will he go to
photo
Mankato
last week? I did take a photo of them together last week.
That was you who took that?
Yeah.
Nice.
I should have wiped off Alex's lens before I took the photo, but it's okay. All right, Connor. I got to sign off here.
Yeah, I got to go to bed soon, too. I have a 9 a.m. discussion section.
Jeez.
I actually have to be on campus tomorrow.
Oh.
So I have to show up on work.
You have to go to work tomorrow?
I have to go to work tomorrow. I'm in person.
I will be right back here.
But I will be at availability tomorrow afternoon. So that's the nice part of having an on-campus day for my team is that I'll already be on campus. So I'll go to practice and I'll check out what's going on. I'll let everybody know how good Jackson Lacombe looks on the ice. And if there's any surprises, Gopher lineup has been pretty set the last month.
Yeah.
The only question mark was if Colin Schmidt would be in the lineup. It looks like they've gone with the speed of
Pianini
and that crew.
But he did like the more physical presence against Michigan. So,
yeah.
Is this something where we see a fish? Even though the full lineup? I mean,
I don't know what they're going to do. It's easier to have 70 than 13 forwards. So,
Interesting. Well, that's going to do it, folks. We still got 44 people watching live. We appreciate you guys staying.
Playoff time.
It is.
Thank y'all.
And we'll see what happens next week. I'm going to figure something out with Vigo in DC. I might change it. I might bring the time up a little bit. Depends on a lot of things. So,
okay,
we'll see.
Okay,
have a great trip, Viggs.
I will. Looking forward to it. Sad to miss the game, but what can you do?
Yeah,
Life,
it is the White House.
and that's just it. It's the
It's the White House.
Well, yeah, there you go. Wear gold.
I'll wear gold in the White House. I'll come in with my Gopher jersey. So.
There you go.
Oh, representing. Yeah. Thanks for watching, folks. See you later.